Imagine a computer. What comes to mind? Sleek smartphones, powerful laptops, perhaps humming data centers. But journey back in time, to the very dawn of the digital age, and you'd encounter something far more alien, yet profoundly familiar. These weren't machines of silicon and microchips. They were behemoths of metal, wires, and, most strikingly, thousands upon thousands of glowing glass bulbs. This wasn't just an aesthetic choice, it was a fundamental necessity. To understand why the first computers were made of what were essentially light bulbs, we must first understand the problem they were trying to solve, and the revolutionary technology that made it possible. For centuries, calculation was a human endeavor, often aided by mechanical devices. From the abacus to Pascal's adding machine, and later, Charles Babbage's visionary, albeit unfinished, analytical engine, the quest was always to automate arithmetic. These mechanical marvels were ingenious, but they had inherent limitations. Friction, wear and tear, and the sheer inertia of moving parts meant they were slow, prone to error, and incredibly complex to build for anything beyond basic arithmetic. As the 20th century dawned, the demands of science, warfare, and commerce created an insatiable hunger for calculations performed at speeds no human or even mechanical device could match. The world needed a new kind of switch. The answer arrived not in the form of more gears, but in the realm of pure electricity: the vacuum tube, also known as a thermionic valve. Invented in the early 20th century, these glass envelopes, evacuated of air, contained electrodes that could control the flow of electrons. At its heart, a vacuum tube is a specialized form of light bulb. Both contain a filament that heats up and glows when current passes through it. In an incandescent bulb, this glow is the primary purpose, see light. In a vacuum tube, the glowing filament's role is to emit electrons, which are then manipulated to amplify signals, or, crucially for computers, to act as an incredibly fast electronic switch. By applying a small voltage to a control grid within the tube, the flow of a much larger current could be either permitted or blocked. This on or off state was instantaneous, silent, and far faster than any mechanical switch. It was the perfect building block for binary logic. At the core of all digital computing lies binary logic, a system built on just two states, typically represented as 0 and 1. In the world of electronics, these states are easily represented by the presence or absence of an electrical current. A vacuum tube, acting as an electronic switch, perfectly embodies this. When current flows through the tube, it's on, representing a 1. When no current flows, it's off, representing a 0. And here's where the light bulb aspect truly comes into play. The glowing filament within each tube wasn't just a side effect, it was a visible indicator of its operational state. For engineers and technicians building and troubleshooting these colossal machines, the visual feedback of thousands of glowing tubes was invaluable. It allowed them to literally see the machines in run-out state, to identify which switches were on or off, and, critically, to spot a failed tube, a common occurrence in these early systems. With the vacuum tube as their fundamental component, pioneers like John Atanasoff and Clifford Berry began building the first electronic digital computers. Their Atanasoff-Berry computer, or ABC, in the late 1930s utilized over 300 vacuum tubes for its logic and memory. But the true colossus arrived with the ENIAC, the electronic numerical integrator and computer, unveiled in 1946. This monumental machine, built for the U.S. Army to calculate artillery firing tables, contained nearly 18,000 vacuum tubes along with 70,000 resistors, 10,000 capacitors, and 6,000 manual switches. It weighed 30 tons, occupied 1,800 square feet, and consumed 150 kilowatts of power, enough to dim lights in an entire section of Philadelphia. The sheer heat generated by these thousands of glowy, ingy tubes required powerful cooling systems. And even with meticulous design, tubes would fail regularly, sometimes several a day, requiring constant vigilance from maintenance crews. Despite their gargantuan size, immense power consumption, and fragile nature, vacuum tube computers were revolutionary. They performed calculations thousands of times faster than any human or mechanical device. The ENIAC could perform 5,000 additions per second, a speed unimaginable just a decade prior. These machines were instrumental in key scientific and military efforts, from the development of the hydrogen bomb to the early days of weather forecasting. They were symbols of immense processing power, housed in rooms that hummed with electricity and glowed with the light of thousands of tiny, electronic stars. Each glowing tube was a testament to a bit of information being processed, a tiny spark in the nascent digital universe. The era of vacuum tube dominance, however, was destined to be short-lived. The very characteristics that made them revolutionary, their size, heat output, power demands, and limited lifespan, were also their greatest drawbacks. The quest for smaller, more reliable, and more efficient electronic switches was relentless. In 1947, at Bell Labs, the invention of the transistor marked the beginning of the end for the vacuum tube's reign in computing. Transistors performed the same switching function but were minuscule, consumed a fraction of the power, generated far less heat, and were infinitely more reliable. The progression from individual transistors to integrated circuits, and eventually to microprocessors, allowed for the exponential miniaturization and power increase we see in modern computing. The glowing tubes faded into history, replaced by countless invisible switches packed onto silicon chips. The image of a computer made of light bulbs may seem like a relic from a forgotten past, a charmingly clunky first step. But those glowing vacuum tubes were more than just components. They were the literal sparks that ignited the digital revolution. They proved the feasibility of electronic computation, laid the groundwork for binary logic, and demonstrated the immense power of automated calculation. Without their brief, brilliant era, the journey to the microscopic marvels of today's processors would have been impossible. So, the next time you tap a screen or click a mouse, remember those enormous, heat-generating, bulb-filled behemoths. For in their glowing filaments lay the very first flicker of the digital age, a testament to human ingenuity, and the foundational light that paved the way for everything that followed. Thank you for watching our video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We value your thoughts greatly. Let us know in the comments.